Hey, today we are going to be writing the functions given real, irrational, and imaginary roots. So yesterday we were just focused in on real roots. Some of them had multiplicities, but all the roots were real numbers. There was no square roots involved or imaginary numbers involved. Today we're going to have some that have imaginary numbers or irrational roots. So let's go ahead and look at our first problem. And so on these, they don't always list all of the factors. They will list all of your real factors, but your imaginary, they may list them all, or they may only list the positive or the negative. Anytime you have an imaginary or irrational, they may list only one of the two, but remember they have both the positive and the negative. And so let's go ahead and start solving this. Let's go ahead and take this first one. Let's take the real one. And so it's going to work just like we did yesterday. X equals 2, and that means our factor, when we move that 2 over, is x minus 2 equals 0. So that's what we're going to multiply with. But let's take our, when your imaginary or real is just one term, it's easy to work with. And so what you're going to do is you're going to take x equals this plus or minus the square root of 6. And so thinking about how when we solved and got to this step last Thursday and Friday, the step right before it, what we did was we squared both sides, or square root of both sides. So we're going to undo this by going the opposite direction, so we're going to square both sides. So it gives us x squared is equal to 6. Now we're going to move that 6 over to the other side by subtracting 6. And that gives us x squared minus 6 equals 0. So now we have our two things that we're going to multiply. We have the x minus 2 and the x squared minus 6. And on the test, when I'm asking you just to give me the factors in factored form, this is where you would stop. You don't have to go any further than that. But for our homework, what I'm asking you to do is to actually find all the way to the solutions. So let's go ahead and multiply this all the way through. So that means we're going to be using our box to help us multiply. And you could either do this where you have the long, where you have 3 rows or 3 columns by 2. And so I'm going to do x minus 2 here, and I have x squared 0x. This is an optional row. This is just kind of a placeholder row. If you didn't want to put it, you don't have to. Just remember that your diagonals won't add. You'll just have to look for what's the correct adding. So x squared times x gives me x cubed. X squared times negative 2 gives me negative 2x. And this is going to be my 0 row. So 0x squared and 0x. Negative 6x and positive 12. And so now we're looking at combining like terms. So we have 1 cubed, and then I'm going to grab my squared terms. Oops, that was supposed to be squared here. Minus 2x squared. And then I'm going to grab my linear terms, and that'll be minus 6x. And then I'm going to grab my constant term in the chart, and that was a positive 12. And so I say f of x equals all of that multiplied through. So when it's just a single radical term or irrational number, or a single imaginary term, this is how you'd work it. So let's go ahead and look at this next one. And I'm going to do parts of it with you, and then I'll let you finish it up for other parts of it for the homework. Oops, I went backwards. So let's start off. Let's find out what would the factor be that created the x equals -4/5. Go ahead and I'm pausing the video here. Y'all will type in, find your answer, and then check it with the video. So you should have found that 5x plus 4 is the factor. So now let's take our imaginary part. So we've got the -1 listed. There is automatically a positive one there. So x equals plus or minus I. And so just like we did the last one, there's a single imaginary. So I'm going to square both sides. And now I have x squared. I squared is, remember, I is the square root of -1. So I squared is -1. And so now I'm going to move that 1 over. And I end up with my factor being x squared plus 1 equals 0. So my factor was x squared plus 1. So those are my two factors. So now that I have my two factors, we're going to go to multiplying. And so we have, and again, so on the test, I'm going to let y'all stop after you've identified the factors with no imaginary or irrational parts. And so you would stop there on the test. But for the homework, we are going to go ahead and practice with multiplying it all the way out. And so again, we're going to take and have a box that is a 3-row by 2-column. Or you could have done it the other way around. It really doesn't matter the order. Okay, I'm just going to try and get in my hand. And so we have 5x and a positive 4. We have x squared. Again, my 0x placeholder. If you don't want that row, you don't have to have that row. And so I'm going to multiply that through. Oh, that's not 6x. 5x squared. And that gives me 4x. Excuse me, 5x cubed. 4x squared. 0x squared. 0x. 5x. And 4. And so f of x is equal to that 5x cubed. Well, my x squareds is 0 plus 4, so 4x squared. 0 plus 5, positive 5x, and a positive 4. So that's my final answer for the homework tonight. So the first couple are pretty simple. The next bit we have to take, and the step 1 is going to work the same. So the way we deal with the rational root is going to be the same. So we have x is equal to 3/5. And so we need to solve this. So go ahead and find the factor. You should have come up with 5x minus 3 is the factor. Oops, not is equal to x. It's equal to 0. Now, on the other one, we had a single term here. Now we have 2. So when you find the second one, you find what's called the conjugate. The first term, the one without the imaginary or irrational part, stays the same. and you're going to change this sign. So minus square root of 2. And so you have x is equal to negative 2 plus the square root of 2, and x is equal to negative 2 minus the square root of 2. And that's going to give us 2 factors, and we're going to end up having to multiply those here in a second. So let's go ahead and move things around. And so x, we have to move this over and the square root of 2 over. And they cannot combine. So plus 2 minus square root of 2 is equal to 0. So that's our factor that we have so far. We're going to work with that more to get a more simplified factor for reporting. So we're going to, again, move both those 2 pieces over. So x plus 2, but this time it's going to be plus the square root of 2, 0. And we're going to use the box. And so since we have 3 things there, and what we're going to work with first is multiplying that green information. We're going to multiply both of these. So we have x, 2, and positive square root of 2, x, 2, and negative square root of 2. And we're going to multiply these through. Okay, so x times x is x squared. X times 2 is 2x. X times square root of 2 is going to give me square root of 2x. So we have 2x, 2x, or to me, not 2x, 2x, and then the next one is going to be 4. And then 2 square roots of 2. And then we have negative x on the square root of 2. Or another way to write that is a square root of 2, negative square root of 2x. And we have negative 2 square roots of 2. And you have this last one, square root of 2 times square root of 2 is going to be 2, and one of them is negative, one's positive, so negative 2. You will see, anytime you have this, you're going to have sets that can be able to cancel out. And you should see anything with an imaginary portion or irrational portion will be able to cancel. If not, you did something wrong at this step. So let's go ahead and combine like terms and write out what this is. So after we multiply that, we came up with x squared. 2x plus 2x is going to give me 4x. 4 minus 2 gives me a positive 2. So when I multiply those, that's what it would have been beforehand. So I have these 2 things that we're going to multiply next. And so because this was not a single term, that's the reason we had to go over to this box. Now, let's go ahead and multiply this. We have a 3-term and a 2-term, so that means I need 3 for one of them and 2 for the other. So I'm with 3 rows, 2 columns. So 5x minus 3. This is x squared, 4x, positive 2. So this is 5x cubed, negative 3x squared, 20x squared, negative 12x, 10x, and negative 6. And we're going to combine like terms. So f of x equals 5x cubed. 20 minus 3 is going to give me 17, so plus 17x squared. 10 minus 12 is going to be negative 2x minus 6. And so the two ways it's been written was f of x equals 5x minus 3 and x squared plus 4x plus 2. That's if I wanted it written out in factored form, and then the second one is if I wanted it multiplied all the way through. We're going to do one more like this, and this is going to be the one that's going to be with the imaginary. So this part is the same way we've been doing. X equals negative 5. So the factor is x plus 5. For the second part, there's two terms involved, and this is one with the imaginary, so I need to make up the second one. I need to make up its conjugate. So this is going to be 1 plus 2i. And so, just like we did on the other one, we're going to take and write it out. X equals 1 minus 2i, and x equals 1 plus 2i. So when I move things over, it's going to become x minus 1 plus 2i equals 0. And this one, when I move things over, it's going to become x minus 1 minus 2i equals 0. And so we're going to multiply these two factors first, just like we did on the last one. So we need a 3 by 3, because we're going to be working on multiplying x minus 1 plus 2i times x minus 1 minus 2i first. And so 3 rows and 3 columns. And it really doesn't matter which one you put on the columns and which one you put on the rows, as long as you have them in both places. So we're going to multiply x squared. Multiply, and that gives me negative x. Multiply, and that gives me negative 2xi. Or you could have put the I before the x. Typically, it's written this way. So negative x, positive 1. Negative 1 times negative 1 is positive 1. Negative 1 times 2i, and negative 2i is going to be a positive 2i. 2i times x gives me that positive 2xi. 2i times negative 1 gives me a negative 2i. And 2i times negative 2i. So 2 times 2 is a negative 4. I times I is negative 1. So that's better written as positive 4. Oops, I'm writing something different than what I'm saying. So looking for sets that can cancel. Those can cancel. They're exactly the same, but opposite sign. And these can cancel. So let's go ahead and find out what this factor is when we multiplied it together. So we had x squared. Negative x plus negative x is negative 2x. 1 plus 4 is positive 5. So that factor we have is x squared minus 2x plus 5. And we're going to multiply it from that factor we found to begin with. So f of x times x plus 5 times x squared minus 2x plus 5. Now we're going to multiply these two together, and that's where we use that 3 by 3 again, or excuse me, 2 by 3 again. We have 3 rows, 2 columns, and this is x plus 5. This is x squared negative 2x, positive 5. And so we have x cubed. Multiply that, we get 5x squared, negative 2x squared, negative 10x, 5x, and 25. So when we have multiplied that all the way through, we end up with x cubed. 5 minus 2 is positive 3x. Negative 10 plus 5 is negative 5x. Excuse me, negative 3x squared. Negative 5x plus 25. So if I want it left at the factored state, you would stop here. If I want it all the way to the solution, this is where you're going to stop.